Okay, welcome. This is Chris B, otherwise known as Bystander X79, and I'm bringing you the first deck profile for the February 2018 format. Alright, as you can see, today's deck list going to be one of my favorite decks to actually be playing since last year, and that's True Dracos. Alright? Now, the reason why this deck is my favorite, Dracos are a tribute summoning deck, and I can tell you right now, the way the effects on these cards are insanely awesome. This deck has a lot of drop and search power in it. It can actually shrug off being Ash Blossom very easily. Oh. And the fact remains, these cards can actually be tribute summoned using spells and traps rather than just monsters. Alright, so we're going to get into the deck right now. First and foremost, we're going to start with the monsters. Alright, I run single copy of Ignis, the true Draco warrior. Alright, now Ignis here has the ability, whenever a card effect your opponent activates is activated, you can actually either search your deck or activate a True Draco or True King spell card, continuous spell card, right from your deck. Alright? This card is currently on one at the ban list because activating spells from your deck kind of does give this deck a little bit of unfair advantage, especially when you contribute some of those cards off for monsters. All right, that's the reason why this guy's at 1. Next card, 3 copies of Majesty Maiden, the True Draco caster. All right, now, just like in this, whenever your opponent activates an effect, you can change this card's effect, and you can actually search your deck for a monster to add to your hand. The reason why she's at 3, you need her to search your monsters. A lot of the other spells and traps should be, specifically this field spell, should be really designated to searching out your other spells and trap cards. Alright, and last but not least, we run the big boss monster here, and that's Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. It's at 2 because I find 3 copies just a little too cloggy. I've actually run into numerous problems with this card at 3, where I draw into 2 copies in my opening hand and only having 1 card to tribute off. Or I open up and I open up with 1 in hand and I draw into the second. 2 is actually perfect. You still see it a lot, but you get a lot more stuff to tribute alongside of it. And I think 2 is actually the most optimal ratio to ever play this card in. Now, the cool thing about Masterpiece is that it actually gains immunity depending on what cards you use to tribute summon for it. If you use traps, it becomes immune to trap cards. If you use spells, it becomes immune to the effects of spell cards. If you use monsters, it becomes immune to the effects of monster effects. A lot of players think this is the real reason this card is a real problematic, because it's a boss monster. I can tell you right now, it's not this card that's the problematic. It's really Diagram being able to give other decks access to this card that makes it a problem. Standalone, even without Diagram, this card can be dealt with. Kaijus can get it off the field very easily. But besides that, this card can also thin out your graveyard by banishing continuous spells and traps to pop one of your opponent's cards. It is a quick effect, so you can use it on your opponent's turn and your turn as well. So, 2 is the best ratio, and this guy is pretty boss. That's why he's the boss monster. Alright, spell cards. Now, this deck is pretty much spell-centric heavy. You can see that. And like I said in the intro, this deck has a lot of draw and search power, and the first card that I'm going to show you is this. 3 copies of Card of Demise. This deck doesn't really special summon all that much. So Card of Demise on your during your main phase 2 is actually perfect. You could be setting a lot of stuff into your field, using this guy to draw into 3 more cards. Just opens up a lot and extends a lot more plays, and helps you get your field ready for your opponent's upcoming turn. Okay. Next card is one of the True Draco continuous spell cards. So this is actually tribute fodder for the deck. Disciples and the True Draco Phoenix. Disciples has a, I would have to say, like a Pot of Arbor style effect, where you take 3 cards with different names from the graveyard and shuffle them back in your deck and draw 1 card. Alright? All True Draco's continuous spells have 2 effects. The first effect is that whenever it leaves the field and goes to the graveyard, you can target one of your opponent's spell and trap cards on the field and destroy it. And the other one is that it allows you to get an extra tribute summon during your turn. So effectively, you can actually turn around and tribute summon up to 3 times per turn with this deck. Alright. Alright, now I'm going to show you the field spells and the ratios that I run in this. I'm going to show you both field spells, actually. I run 2 copies of Domain of the True Monarch, and I only run 2 copies of Dragonic Diagram. Now, you're probably thinking, why run 2 when you can run 3? To be very honest, this deck, I've stacked this deck with a whole lot of draw power, so it really, the third search from a diagram really isn't that necessary. And with how the game has evolved after the introduction of links, running an extra copy of Domain the True Monarchs is something that this deck really needs a little bit more of. Now, Domain can shut down your opponent's special summoning from the extra deck. So that means no link summons and no pendulum summons, which are basically 2 of the biggest decks out there in the meta. Domain also boosts your tribute summon monsters by 800 attack whenever they attack a monster, not the other way around, just keeping that in mind. But Domain is typically used for a lockdown style of play, and I can tell you right now, with the way the game has evolved, that's a little bit more necessary with this deck to actually make it a little bit more competitive. This diagram, it boosts all your True Draco monsters, or True King monsters in your deck by 300 point attack and defense points. It's a modest boost. It does protect your monsters from being destroyed once per turn in battle. Not bad. But the main thing is you pop a card, you search a card. That's the main effect, what a lot of people use this for. 2 is actually the best way I see it. The third one, I've been playing this deck with this ratio, and I can tell you right now, I really don't see the need for a third one, especially with all the draw power and search power that I have in this deck. It is useful, it gets play started, but to be very honest, 2 is really all you need. Okay. Next card. Now, this is a card that actually is extremely important in the game now, and that's triple March of the Monarchs. March of the Monarchs basically makes your tribute summon monsters untargetable, and you can't be destroyed by card effects. So, basically saying, the last ban list gave us back 3 bottomless trap holes. It gave us back 3 torrential tributes, and it even gave us 3 mind controls. That being said, mind control targets. This card's up with your tribute summon monsters. They ain't mind controlling your monsters to use for link summonings. This card up, you summon your monsters. They're not destroying them with bottom trap hole or torrential. All right, this right here is pure monster protection. It's necessary for the deck in this format. And the coolest thing about it is that this plus Masterpiece, this card plus Masterpiece is actually covering what Masterpiece effect won't. So if you use traps and monster effects, a trap and a monster to tribute summon out Masterpiece, this will protect your monster from spell cards. Yeah. So, that's the whole reason why this card's at 3. You want to see it, you want to get it on the field. An extra special thing is a continuous spell, which makes it tribute fodder for the deck. So, it's got to be at 3. Alright, next card. This card came off the list in the last ban list. I'm very happy with it. Monster Reborn. This is basically take a monster from your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard and use it for tribute fodder. Alright, next cards. Again, more draw power. Triple pot of duality. Again, this deck doesn't special summon, so it really doesn't hurt your deck on your turn. Digs into your deck 3 cards, so you can choose the card for the right situation. And shuffles your deck afterwards. I mean, any tribute summon deck should be running this card at 3 anyway, so. Alright. Since we have field spells, you gotta run Terraforming, search out your field spell, and get your deck going, or lock your opponent out of place. Next card, the Monarchs Stormforth. I can tell you this right now, I don't care what you're thinking. If you're running a Tribute Summon deck, this card is a must in any Tribute Summon deck. Alright? It's at 1 on the limited list, primarily because this card doesn't target any of your opponent's monsters. It just gives you access to their monsters to use as Tribute fodder. I can't tell you how good this card was back when it was at 3. It's still just as good, even as 1. Tribute Summon deck, this card needs to be in there. I'm not sad about that. And the last card is True Draco Heritage, which is 3 copies. Just like Disciples, it has the leave the field, pop a spell trap effect, give you extra Tribute Summon. But it does give you extra draw power. So, depending on the number of other True Draco cards that go from the field to the graveyard, that'll give you draws. The thing about it is that it only counts card types, and there are 3 card types. There's monsters, spells, and traps. So if you send a monster and a spell card, you draw 2 cards. If you send a monster and 2 spell cards during your turn, you're only still drawing 2 cards because it's just two different card types that were sent. I can tell you right now, it's a play extender, it's extra tribute fodder, needs to be at 3, running at 3, it's extremely good. Okay, on to the traps. Deck actually has only 10 traps, and the first trap here is actually a bit of a tech card that I like running, and that's Triple Reckless Greed. Now, yeah, I can understand it's a trap card, it's kind of slow, but... And yeah, it does take away 2 draw phases, but with the amount of draw power that I packed into this deck, you're not going to miss those 2 draw phases. To be honest, I've been playing this card in my deck for a while since I found out about it. I can't tell you how insane this card is. Even with the 2 draw phases, without having those 2 draw phases, I was able to draw or search multiple times during those 2 turns to make up for it. This card, even though it's a trap card and it's kind of slow, it's still insane to have. If you don't believe me, try it out. You'll change your mind immediately. Next card at Triplicate that I run is the Monarchs Erupt. Now this is basically not a continuous trap, which makes it tribute fodder, which is great, but the real reason this card is in the deck is because as long as you have a tribute summon monster on the field, you're negating all monster effects on the field that haven't... excuse me, let me rephrase. You're negating all the effects of monsters on the field that haven't been tribute summoned. It's an insane skill strain style card. Shuts down your opponent's decks very hard since most decks are basically monster effect driven now. Yeah, the way to beat it is on the card. If I don't have a tribute summon monster in the field, yeah, it's gonna basically be sent to the graveyard. But I can tell you right now, this card does, once this card goes up, it pretty much locks your opponent out of doing different things. I can't tell you how good this card is, especially when you're using it in combination with something like Domain. It just can lock your opponent down, and that's kind of what this deck needs to do. Get a field on the field, and then lock your opponent out of place just to turn around and give you an advantage. Alright, now on to the True Draco traps. We run 3 copies of True Draco Apocalypse. Okay, now all True Draco or True King trap cards have 2 similar effects. The first one is that if it leaves the field, it pops a monster on your opponent's, or excuse me, it pops a monster on the field. It doesn't have to be on your opponent's side. It can even be yours, which can help further your plays if you're playing a lot more floaters and things like that. The other effect that it gives is that it actually allows you to tribute summon during your opponent's main phase, which is actually pretty good. Since there's 2 different types of traps, you can actually tribute summon twice during your opponent's turn, in theory. Now what Apocalypse does is that it basically destroys one other True Draco or True King card on the field. Doesn't matter if it's a monster, spell, or trap. And it basically halves your opponent's monster's attacks. And that halving doesn't go away at the end of the turn. It's a kind of a permanent attack lowering effect, which actually makes it a lot easier when you have a field with Matches Maiden and Ignis on the field. Alright. A lot of times you're using it as tribute fodder, but this card can actually help you get over some tough things. Alright, now we have the single copy of True King's Return. This card is limited. Like I said before, with all True King or True Draco traps, tribute summon on your opponent's turn, send to the graveyard, it pops a monster on the field. But what this card does is that once per turn, it actually allows you to turn around and grab a monster from your graveyard and special summon it in defense mode. So you can do it once per your turn, once per your opponent's turn, and basically build back your field and get tribute fodder onto the field, which is actually pretty excellent. Alright. Now that's it. I'm just going to put all the cards up here like so. That's it for my deck. This deck doesn't run an extra deck, basically because of Domain. And I can tell you right now, from my experience playing it, it really didn't need it. Anyway, this deck is insane. If you love the deck, thumbs up. If you really love the deck, subscribe, notification bell to know when I throw up new videos. As with all deck builds, if you don't like ratios, feel free to change them, add more monsters, take away spells or traps. And if you do extremely well with your build, there's a comment section below. Let me know how you do. Alright, until next time, peace out everybody.